I'm striving for that positive direction, I still got some bumps in
Hmm.
the road that I'm going over, and the learning how to go through those bumps, and then also having a hand there, where I can. It's almost like that way station that I stop at, and okay, all right, guys, this is what I got today. Um,
Yeah,
I need to like get some of this out. I mean, and then get back on the road,
yeah,
pushing forward.
yeah.
Um, I feel like that's one of that's what's been helping me a lot is just, you know, sort of creating some balance, in my life, with this men group,
Mhm.
you know.
Welcome to the Cardinal Way for Men. My name is Ed Cardinal. And tonight I wanted to discuss the benefits of joining a men's group. And it is a pleasure to have Louis on tonight, who actually I met. Uh, how long ago was that, Louis? That you were he actually was a student of mine in my one of my Thai trainings, and that was quite a few years ago, actually. So
Yeah.
Louis is a physical therapy assistant, lives up in the Boston area, and I find him to be a very passionate man about his profession, also about his culture, and we can talk more about that. And he actually is a member of my virtual men's group, so I wanted to kind of get his take on what he's gained from that, and he's also been members of other men's groups. So, Louis, welcome to the Cardinal Way for Men.
Thank you for having me.
So,
Yeah, no, I've been, like you said, a therapist for a while,
yeah,
and it's been a pleasure to have you as a friend and a mentor.
well, I appreciate that. And what made you get drawn towards joining a men's group? I know this is not your first rodeo with the, we're doing a bi-weekly men's group for an hour, and but you've been involved in men's groups before. So what was your draw? What made you decide that that was something that you thought would be helpful for you?
So initially, when I had done the men's group several years ago, I did it for almost 2 years, and then sort of faded away from it a little bit. But the fade kind of like drew me sort of apart in a way that I kind of like left like kind of like missing something. And so I almost had like this little void in me and kind of stayed with me for, I would say, almost 8 years. Um, and then all of a sudden, you sent me a message, and all of a sudden I'm like in this midst of some mayhem in my life, and I said, I think this is the missing part that I need to sort of fill in again.
Hmm.
And we started again doing, the men's group. Um, and it's been very helpful. It's kind of brought me back to some of the original roots that I had, practiced, one being in touch with my masculinity, um, in a way that is free, um, not not dogmated, not ridiculed, not taken for granted, and respected.
Hmm.
And so I feel like I needed some of that back in my life.
Yeah, as you know, and I've shared this in our group, that I got involved in a men's group in probably mid 90s. And like you, there was something missing in my life, that connection to other men, that the connection I didn't have with my father.
Yeah.
And also growing up in this culture, you're Puerto Rican. We can talk more about some of the cultural differences, but growing up in this culture, what it means to be a man is not a positive thing. I mean, don't
Yeah,
express emotions, don't be vulnerable, don't be sensitive. If you are, it's seen as a sign of weakness or you're ridiculed. And this is the case with me with my father. And
yeah.
so I didn't have a positive male role model, and that connection to other men was missing. And that's why I joined a men's group, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I made a lifelong friend in my friend Ron from that group, and we're still friends. It sort of replaced that lack of connection I didn't have with my father. I filled, like you said, it filled that void. And so were you feeling, you know, back when you first got involved in the men's group, were you feeling some sort of a void, that connection to other men?
So, yeah, so definitely the void factor is definitely the missing factor in my life, to other men. I did have, I've always had a relationship with my dad, but it's always been a distant relationship. And so, but I've always had a close relationship with my brothers. But the 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 difference between having a relationship with my father and my brothers and this men's group to me is that, yeah, I can be myself with my brothers, and with my father there's always been this tension because he's very, very masculine in nature. But the void for me is almost like where I can sort of be vulnerable, um, without any judgment whatsoever. And with my brothers, I can't do that. With my father, I can't do that, um, because it's just how they are, and and it could be just be in my head too. I mean, I've had some great conversations with my brother, but I feel like in this men's group, I can also be discreet. I can also say what I want to say and know that it's going to be confidential. And for me, that's actually it's important. Not that my life is full of a lot of confidential stuff, but it's more of like the freedom that I can speak freely,
Mm.
without any judgment, and and still hold that true identity that I have as a man, and as a masculine person,
Mm.
because that's how I carry myself.
Right. When you said your dad is very masculine, what do you mean by that? How would you describe
He
your father?
is my father is a very old-fashioned chauvinistic man, where his beliefs are that the woman is basically the one that he chose, and she's almost like beneath him. He will take care of her, but she's sort of like his servant. And till this day, I mean, he will sit down at the kitchen table and wait for my mom to serve him. Um, that's just the way he is, and that's his belief. And so I always butted heads with him with that because I didn't feel like a woman should be like thought of as, beneath like a person. Like, and so I always butted head with him with that. But it's also, he believes it sort of in a doctrination kind of way because he believes truly in the Bible. And so it comes from a religious background too. So not only is it a cultural thing for him, but it's also a religious thing. So, you have two worlds that have sort of like said to him, yeah, this is the right thing to, to be, or, this is the right way to be in the world. Then, it sort of backs up his mentality,
Mm.
culturally and in the Bible.
Mm. So,
So, but so we always butted heads with that, like,
right.
you know.
So what is your definition of masculinity, and how were you able to change that pattern from your father and that cultural pattern?
So I actually married a feminist. So so and it was kind of like on purpose in a way, um, because I knew that I had these roots of being chauvinistic because that's what I saw, and she did not allow that. She fought me tooth and nail, and we were married for 18 years, and we got divorced for other reasons. But she actually tamed that chauvinistic part of me because we actually had two daughters. And I also didn't want a man to sort of treat my daughters like that, to treat them like as, like beneath them. And not that feminism does that to a man. It's more like, you know, it's almost like treating a person equally. Um, treating, treating a woman or a man with respect and dignity, and not belittling either one. Um, and I feel like in relationships, you will have different roles as a masculine. There's a masculine role and a feminine role, and that you can work out in your relationship with whoever whoever you have a relation with. It could be your father, mother, sister, brother, friend. I feel like there's always this, feminine, masculine kind of energy in relationships, um, where you don't have to label directly to a man or a woman. So, so in retrospect, the change came about slowly because I can remember, being kind of thinking like that I was going to get my dinner on my table on a regular basis. And for a while it did. She kind of like was like she thought about it in a way that because we were married, kind of like, okay, we both have the same background. This is a cultural thing. And so she kind of brought it to that level. But before long, she was like, wait a minute, I don't think so. You can cook too. You can get up and get your own meal. And so slowly but surely I adopted. And actually it's weird because when I started cooking, I actually enjoyed it. Um, when I started serving myself, I served myself, in my opinion, like a lesser portion. Like, it's almost like when I took control of my needs, it actually felt better, you know, not to rely on anybody.
Right,
So for me, it was almost like creating the autonomy without sacrificing who I am.
right. That's awesome.
So,
That's a great way to put it. So,
yeah.
what is your definition of masculinity? So, how are you a masculine man today?
Today, my definition of masculinity, I feel like it's more like an inward thing, um, like a feeling that I have that I identify as somebody who's strong and firm, um, sensitive but not weak. Um, I struggle with some of my ideologies, in politics and all that. I'm still struggling with that. It's the politics of today are very, very, very complicated
Mhm.
and very weird.
Yeah,
Um,
to say the least. Mhm.
yeah. But like when I think of masculinity, I think of it as trying to be somebody who can, be strong and be there for people, not only the people for a family too. Um, I think that what I've learned from my father is that since being chauvinistic, there is some there is some strength in some of the, masculinity of chauvinism. There is a dark side to it, but there is a positive side in that you can be very, very strong. I remember my father like battling for our protection on a regular basis. He, I can tell you a story, quick one. Like we were little kids and we used to go up to the back of the house and go fishing because we had like a little pond. And one day I'm out there and we're fishing, having fun, me and my brothers. And all of a sudden this kid comes up from behind us and starts throwing pebbles into the water, but glazing our heads. And my father's upstairs in the house, and he's looking down and he sees this, and we're like saying, "What are you guys like?" It was a bunch of kids. What are you guys doing? And all of a sudden, I see my father coming down, like, and just protecting us and saying, "You kids, if you hurt my kids, I am gonna, take you to the police." And I just felt this protection from him, like that was so amazing, as a man. And so he instilled that protective kind of masculine, you know, idea in me. And so I feel like in me comes this purity of that, this like outer purity of protection. And it comes through in my job as a therapist too. I'm constantly protecting my patients, constantly protecting my daughters. I'm always thinking, when they were little, how I can protect them from like anything. And so I was always, very protective of them growing up. I can tell you stories about how I got involved in situations with them where I was like I overreacted a little bit because I was very protective of them. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, masculine, I mean, I can go on, and giving you like different, like, various definitions because I feel like it's not just one thing.
Right.
It's an abundance of things that make up, you know, that whole term.
Mm.
You live it day by day.
Mhm.
You carry yourself day by day in a masculine, way. Um, feeling.
Let's go back to you were talking about the masculine and feminine, and we tend to label traits that are masculine
Hmm.
and feminine. And you talked
Hmm.
about in relationships, there's going to be times when that shows up. Do you feel that we as men have parts of us, obviously we have parts that are masculine, like you said.
Hmm.
Do you believe there's parts of us that are so-called, the feminine? Those are the feminine traits.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that to me, like being sensitive, you know, is it is a feminine trait in my mind. Um, and I have been accused of being gay, because I'm very sensitive. Um, and I've actually dated girls that have broken up with me because I'm too sensitive. Um, so, and they have told me in my face, you act like a woman, you and but what I've realized is that being sensitive is not so much a sensitive, woman thing. You can't identify sensitivity with a trait. It's more of, your makeup as a person, your traits, your affirmation, your sensory, component in your mindset, like how you respond to stuff. and so for me, I kind of struggle sometimes for with being kind of like a little too sensitive because I feel like I kind of like let my emotions take control of some of my decisions sometimes. And so I have to walk back those some of those thoughts and be like, okay, wait a minute. Am I acting with logic or am I acting with sensitivity? So, and I feel like you need both.
Yeah.
So, because that's your makeup,
Right.
that's you're wired that way. So I feel like, you know, playing with these kind of like, you know, sensory things, it can get confusing sometimes in your head. It can. Um, but what I try to do on a regular basis is at the end of every day is try to, think back of my day and what transpired and all those different things. And yeah, and work it out.
Yeah. Click the link in the description to receive your free ultimate guide for men over 45, unlocking the 10 secrets to a fulfilling life. It's interesting. You and I have had this discussion about, uh, the traits, culture, the cultural conditioning, and this is also, strong in your Puerto Rican culture with that
Hmm.
machismo, that
Hmm.
because you're sensitive, you're vulnerable, you emote feelings, you cry, that's seen as feminine. It's seen as something of being gay.
Hmm.
It's seen as being weak, and because of that, men avoid it. Yet they don't realize that they are doing themselves a great injustice to their overall health and well-being, because those pieces of us are natural, and to live a
Hmm.
balanced whole life, those parts need to be expressed and to be accepted by ourselves as part of who
Hmm.
we are. And that's something I've had to work very strong on, like you, uh,
Hmm.
because I am and have been a sensitive boy. I'm a sensitive man. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, to express emotions, to cry. But that wasn't always the case, because I was afraid of how I was going to be judged.
Hmm.
So, and because men avoid those things, they have higher rates of suicide. They
Right.
have health issues, particularly heart disease. And I see that
Yeah.
as dying of a broken heart, not being able to connect to that part of yourself, the heart, the emotions, the feelings,
Yeah.
abuse towards men, women, children. So there's a whole host of challenges. Addiction is another one that men struggle with, because they cannot be who they are based
Yeah.
on how they were raised and they fear they're going to be judged. And
Hmm.
so I think that's one of the benefits of being a part of a men's group. You
Definitely.
can feel safe. And you mentioned this, you can feel safe. And this happened with me. I felt safe to be vulnerable. I wasn't going to be
Hmm.
judged. I was going to be supported for who I am as a man.
Yeah.
And that is a great gift.
It is.
Mm.
I mean, I think we all, like you said, as individuals, are made up very differently. Whether we're straight, whether we're bisexual, whatever it is. And, depending on your culture, you can be judged. You can be, estranged. You can be, there's so many components, even sort of so much being estranged, but you can also be, forgotten, from friends, um, because of, the way you talk or the way you think or the way you carry yourself. And, it's very difficult in our society, um, nowadays, especially with the media and everything and all the different social platforms that we have, it's just sort of like, be yourself. I feel like a lot of people have to conform to different situations, to different platforms, and in order to sort of say who they are, and sort of like, and at the same time hide who they are,
Right.
because they're afraid of revealing themselves,
Right.
and their true identity.
Right.
And so being, in this situation, it's like, where you're surrounded by men who complement, your mentality, who accept your mentality. You feel safe. You do. You feel safe. I felt safe. Obviously what's said, in the, in our groups is kept, and I trust that,
Yeah.
you know. I can say what I want to say, and I know I'm not gonna, be judged.
Hmm.
And it's almost like it's relieving to be that way,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, Even if, in my head I'm thinking I'm being judged, it's a battle that I will probably have, now and forever. It's not something, something that I'm managing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like we're constantly thinking of, like, what other people are thinking of us,
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
so it's just one of these things. It's a natural thing,
Hmm.
but, you know, understanding that that's something that's normal, and discussing that is very helpful.
Hmm. One of the things I do is I help men get healthier. I do wellness coaching for men, and I like to bring some of those practices and discussing some of those practices into the men's group. And I know you've made some amazing lifestyle changes and you've had some great results of that. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of the lifestyle changes you've made and how you feel about that, how your body feels, and how it's really changed the way you look, because you look a lot different than when you started the men's group. And we just talked about this last week in the
I
group.
know.
So,
Um, yeah, no, definitely. Um, when I first started the men's group, I felt broken. I felt like there were so many pieces of me that were so discombobulated, um, that I knew I needed to put back together. And so coming into the men's group, it allowed me to sort of put everything on the table, like what's going on in my head, where I was in my health, where I was with my addiction, um, where I was with my mind, and sort of like say, okay, well, here I am. Okay, now how are we going to deal with this? And how are we going to chop away at trying to, fix some of this? And I'm not 100% fixed. I don't think I'll ever be.
we never are.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but at least try to take control of all these pieces that are all over the place in my life, and, have some organization around my thoughts. I mean, as my history with my, with my kids and all that. I mean, it was I went through a rough patch, where, and I'm still going through it. Um, but I feel like giving myself an opportunity to work things, to try to balance my life. I mean, I was able to take control of my weight. I lost about 30 pounds.
That's awesome.
I was able to control my health, as far as medications and all those different things. I was able to get all some evaluations that I was worried about. Some physical stuff that some that I was worried about, that was cleared. Um, and I was able to sort of like get my mindset like geared, and, and sort of refocused, in a positive direction. Knowing that, even though I'm headed in, I'm striving for that positive direction, I still got some bumps in
Hmm.
the road that I'm going over, and learning how to go through those bumps, and then also having a hand there, where I can, it's almost like that way station that I stop at and, okay, all right, guys, this is what I got today. Um,
Yeah,
I need to like get some of this out. I mean, and then get back on the road,
yeah,
pushing forward.
yeah.
Um, I feel like that's one of the, that's what's been helping me a lot is just, you know, sort of creating some balance, in my life, and with this men group,
Mhm.
you know.
What are some of the physical changes you made, your physical lifestyle?
Well, I go to the gym more.
Awesome.
I eat better. I haven't had a fast food meal in a long time. Um, because I used to have them all the time. So I've lost, and the interest in eating like that has gone away. I'm eating more healthy. Um, I also do like I take care of my sensitivity. I take care of my sensitivity by meditating. It's almost like I need, because I know I'm very sensitive. So I know that I need to meditate in order to calm my system down. And and it's funny because if I don't do that, if I don't take that time, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 5 minutes, every day, today was 20 minutes. Um, it, I miss it. My body needs it. It yearns that balance. Um, and so also just, again, going back to my health, getting some sauna in, you know, steam into my, just trying to detoxify my system. That's been very helpful. Um, and also talking to some friends, about, some of the stuff. I've actually opened up to a few friends about some of my personal stuff that I can trust. There's been
Yeah.
some friends that I trust. And so learning how to trust people,
Mhm.
has also carried, just from, not from the men's group, but also in my private life,
Yep.
because I have a tough time trusting people. I
Mm.
do.
Yep.
And so, um, and I guess what's interesting that I actually learned yesterday is that even though I'm in this situation with my kids where it might be for a long period, I was listening to a show yesterday about how some of the things I can do can help me deal with some of that situation. And so looking for help with some of my situations, and learning how to deal with some of my situation has also helped, because I feel like being grounded and being balanced, also alerts you, to all these different, strengths. I mean, all these learnings that you can have and gain strength from. Because I'm always trying to work on myself. I'm always trying to work on me and how to better myself as a person, how to be a better person, father, boyfriend, all those different things, therapist. And so, this has helped me, calm myself down and, recalibrate my whole mindset, my whole mind, my physically everything.
Mm. So it sounds like you have more awareness. It's increased your awareness. And then you also, it's one thing in order to change, to create change, awareness is the
Hmm.
first step, but you need to take action. And if you've done that, you
Yeah.
exercise, you watch your diet. You mentioned addiction.
Yeah.
I know you've change some habits around that, which I think has also contributed to your physical health, your mental
Oh
health,
yeah.
emotional health.
Oh yeah. I mean, addiction is one of those things you're always working through.
Mm,
You know, it could be, I'm addicted to sci-fi, I'm addicted to, whatever. And so you're constantly trying to work through, these things. And for me, it's learning, having the patience with me, knowing that I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect, but that I can work through some of the things that are happening to me, that I can empower myself by understanding how my brain works, understanding how addiction works, how understanding how my sensitivity works, and how I can manage all those different things. Not to say that I'm going to have a good day every day, but that, there's going to be more positive days than negative days, which is what's been happening to me.
right.
I've been having more positive days than negative days.
Yeah.
Um, and enjoying the positive days, not forcing anything, me too. I mean, this is something that, you can't force your mindset or you can't force your body. You got to like slowly, take control of your mind and your addiction and your sensitivity. It's not an easy process.
Yeah.
It's like work in progress,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's baby steps. If I told you when you first started in the men's group that you were gonna make, okay, tomorrow I want you to make all the changes that you've made since then, you would have said
Hmm.
that's ridiculous.
Crazy.
You probably
Yeah.
would have dropped out of the
Oh
group,
yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
you've
Yeah.
made baby steps that
Yeah.
which I think creates permanent change.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes part of your lifestyle, becomes part of who you are.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
what does meditation look like for you?
Yeah. So meditation, when I first was introduced to meditation, my brain was, what? What is this meditation? And it took a while for me to really understand meditation. I mean, I read about it, how you center yourself, how you go through all these, breathing techniques, and you try to eliminate all the tension out of your body, and you find a quiet place. And, you know, it- I went through the whole gamut, but it wasn't until I started realizing that meditation is more of a spiritual thing. It's a connection to the self, to me, to Louis, to the inner Louis, to the one that I can't fake, to the one that I can't lie to, that I started understanding that if I can center myself and really get to that Louis, that, the me, the real me, that I can actually be in, not so much in control, but be true to me. Um, and the truthness, whatever it is, where, whatever truth is happening in the moment is okay.
Mm,
And that brought to me a calming effect. It's almost like I can slowly get myself, in a rhythm of breathing and relaxation, and to the point where I've actually have experiences where my body just shocks, like it releases energy, um, which is an amazing thing
mm,
because it's almost like I'm able to tap into that spiritual person, or that, that energy that will get rid of the tension and allow me to relax,
mm.
to reset, to recalibrate, and set myself off again, in the path.
Mm.
And,
So is the way you get to that place through focusing on your breathing? Is that how you do it?
Breathing.
Yep.
Um, I do it so many different ways. I do it through breathing. I threw it to, in the steam room, in the
Mhm.
sauna. I do it in the shower. I do it in the bathroom. I do it in bed. Any chance that I get to meditate, I can get myself to that spot
Mm.
by just quieting down the noise outside of my body, quieting down the thoughts inside my head, obviously through the breathing, because the breathing interrupts all that noise on the exterior part. It interrupts those thoughts. It kind of like boom, because that's your nervous system is like that. Your nervous system, once you stop breathing, it just interrupts any anything that's going on in your body because you have to concentrate. If you concentrate, you have to think about the deep breath, and automatically it stops you from thinking anything.
Right.
But at the same time, you can get bound down by that hyperventilation, by that nervousness, because then you're realizing how heavy you're breathing or how your heartbeat is so strong and you get fast or whatever. And so in order to get that nervous system to come down, you have to believe that you can gain control of it, that you are in control of this body, that you're in control of this mind, that you are in control of this nervous system. Um, and I mean, I've gotten there
Mm.
so many times.
Yep.
Massaging, when I go for a nice massage, I just go into that meditation mode. And it's been so many times that I've woken up, where my whole body just dissipates
Mhm.
all this
Yep.
energy.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's a great explanation of what meditation is for you because it's very personal.
Very
Yeah,
personal.
as you said, there's a lot of different ways you can meditate, and you can meditate any time, any place. It's basically on a like a simple description or explanation of meditation. It's focused attention, and you can
Yeah,
do that in any way what works for you. I mean, it could be
exactly.
focusing on the breath, focusing on a light, listening to music, um, listening to an audio where it brings you through progressive relaxation. So it brings you into the
Mhm.
moment so you can get to know that, reconnect with that part of yourself that we've gotten so disconnected from
Exactly.
through our busy lives, through our histories of the past, worrying about the future, but bringing it back to the present moment. So Louis, I appreciate you taking time out of your evening to discuss the benefits of being a part of a men's group and also the great benefits and the growth that you've experienced from it. I mean, I'm so proud of you and the changes you've made, and it's been a blessing for me to witness not only the physical changes that I see on a biweekly basis, um, in your physical body, but also your energetic body. And you seem happier. You're definitely healthier, and also um, emotionally and mentally, how that's impacting you. So again, thank you. Proud of you, and look forward to seeing you next week in our virtual men's group.
All right. Thank you so much, Ed. All right. It was a pleasure to assist
All right.
and talk about my experiences, and hopefully, somebody out there can, listen to this and gain some strength from this and know that, there is a space.
Right.
There is a space that you can go to and feel safe
Yep.
and thank you so much.
Yeah. And
All right.
I'll drop my contact information in the description below.
Okay.
If you want to contact me uh, to see if you qualify for our virtual men's group, you can reach out to me and we can discuss that further. And again, we'll see you next week. Louis, take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you, Ed.